Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Each week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our website and discuss the implications they'll have on the manufacturing industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Awesome. How about yourself?
I'm excited. Looking forward to a very low-key weekend. Anna, you got plans.
I got some plans. Going on a trip after this. Super excited.
Right? We'll miss you next week.
Yeah, I know, guys. I will have Andy stand in, and he will love it.
Does Andy know that yet?
He doesn't.
Oh, man. That's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Andy's generally good at anything different in his day-to-day.
He embraces it wholeheartedly.
He likes the challenge.
Should I wait till Friday morning and then email him?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
I'll do it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, please hold your heavy sigh, Andy, because here we go. All right. Before we get started with our first story this week, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
Right, and we're back. How was the word from our sponsor? Did that do anything for you? I liked it. Anyway, our first story this week, Fukushima quake knocks chip makers offline. On March 16th, just before midnight, a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck near the Fukushima province in northeast Japan. Several factories were shut down, including Renesas Electronics, which is responsible for roughly 1/3 of the global supply of chips. Renesas suspended production at 2 chip plants and partially shut down another. 2 other electronics companies halted their operations, including smartphone parts maker Murata Manufacturing and 3 Sony factories. This isn't good news, as components are already selling as fast as manufacturers can make them. Jeff, your thoughts on a natural disaster having an incredible impact on an already strained supply chain?
First of all, thank you for clarifying that this is not good news.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
Appreciate the heads
Normally
up there.
you hear good news
Yeah.
about earthquakes, but
Yeah,
this one.
I mean, wait till you get my other hot take on this one, because
Yeah, I mean, geez, you take a 7.4 magnitude earthquake, you compound, I mean, that's bad enough in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it killed like 5 people, hundreds injured, all that kind of thing. And then also you're looking, you know, with what we focus on primarily, which is manufacturing and supply chain. And obviously these 2 areas have already been hit so hard. When you look at the chip makers, they're already having enough struggles with what's going on right now in terms of supply and demand. There's also, because of what's going on in Ukraine, apparently there's a lot of factories in Ukraine that produce the neon that is required for chip production as well. So that gas that's produced there is also sort of contributing to some of these chip shortages in addition.
Okay.
So sort of the last thing we needed. And then when we look at, there's also 2 big car manufacturing plants that were, or 2 companies that had a number of their plants that were also taken offline due to the earthquake, with Nissan and Toyota. I believe Toyota projected that they were going to lose about 20,000 cars due to the stoppage, which in the global scheme of things is not huge. But when we're looking at the shortage that we're dealing with right now, just with new vehicles on the lots, that is kind of a big deal. So just a horrible tragedy from a number of levels, and just further reaching ramifications, which is what we've seen throughout the last couple of years. One thing goes down and it's just this trickle effect, and it just seems to keep going and going.
The dominoes all fall.
Yeah.
There were no casualties at the Renesas facilities. It's just impossible to say this name without wanting to say Renaissance. It's
Is
just
it?
like,
Yeah.
it's Renaissance.
Okay.
It's Renaissance, but you can't say it without your brain saying, no, it's Renaissance. And the worst in terms of people getting injured was one employee suffered a minor bruise. And I just thought that was incredible given the scale of all the damage. They did say that power has been restored, but the company is still working to assess the condition of the facility, as well as any impacts on equipment, products, and clean rooms. Anna, it sounds like the company is going to be cleaning up for a long time, but it sounds like they're trying to ramp up production in the areas that it's possible, as soon as possible.
Yeah, which is good, but I think we have to look at some of the larger supply chain issues here. I mean, the first thing that got my attention when I saw that this had happened was obviously the word Fukushima. I mean, that's pretty cemented in our minds at this point as to, what happened there in, I believe, 2011, when a much more severe earthquake took place, and the subsequent tsunami, mudslides, melted down a nuclear plant. I think some 20,000 people died in that natural disaster, and there was a bunch of aftershocks, and it was a really horrible situation. So when I saw that there was another earthquake there, I was like, which obviously this, 7.4, that can create severe damage. And initially there was a tsunami warning, and I think the waves from that reached, they said 8 inches versus what happened in 2011 was I don't even remember how many feet, 30 feet or something crazy. So that, that earthquake was something like 500 times stronger than what this one was. However, this area is at greater risk for earthquakes than, anywhere else really. I mean, Japan experiences 10% of the earthquakes worldwide, and if you look at that,
wow, I didn't know. Holy cow!
I know, and look at the landmass relative to that, and that's just insane, So experts believe that the risk for Tokyo in particular to experience a powerful earthquake in the next few decades is 47%, 46% for Nagoya, and 30% for Osaka. So when you think about critical industry and you look at things like semiconductors, I feel like it's pretty irresponsible for us in the West to think that we can just continue to sort of roll the dice here and win every time. I mean, this stuff is expected at this point, and we know that it has or can have an even more catastrophic impact than what happened just in recent weeks in Fukushima. We've seen it happen before. So I don't know. I mean, we talk a lot about onshoring of supply chains and semiconductors being more critical industry, and the government trying to put more emphasis on bringing that back here, and I think this just sort of reinforces that point a little bit, because again, these kind of things are just not going to stop happening.
Well, I think we've talked about it previously, where there are these new chip plants coming to the States, but we're still really reliant on that global supply chain until those get up and running. And when disasters like this strike, it does reinforce the point that what we're doing is correct, but you can't make it happen any faster.
Well, and it makes me wonder, I mean, those are some amazing stats that Anna just threw out there in terms of how frequent those earthquakes hit those areas. One of the things that the pandemic and this other craziness that's gone on over the last couple of years, it's made companies look at their contingency planning or their continuity planning. And you kind of wonder for those chip makers if doing some of those reshoring activities and bringing it here wasn't part of that plan.
True.
In looking at just what's going on in some of these different areas. We've had how many stories talking about maritime disasters and stuff coming over on boats. So you wonder if part of the planning process or things that have opened up is not just the efficiencies and the benefits from making stuff here, but just the avoidance of a lot of these potential horrible events.
I'm sure that has to play a role in it. Because it's just smarter business. And Anna, the waves about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, were more than 13 meters high.
It's like 40 feet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I had to look that up because I just couldn't let that one stand. All right, our next most popular story this week. Kawasaki is making a robot goat.
Yes.
At the 2022 IREX International Robot Exhibition in Tokyo, Kawasaki Heavy Industries showed off 2 humanoid robots and a robot goat. The first was the RHP Kaleido. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing 182 pounds, it can carry 132 pounds in each arm. Kaleido is nimble, and while slow, only walks about 3 miles per hour, it can be used in high-altitude maintenance situations like towers or wind turbines. The second humanoid was the RHP Friends, a little smaller than Kaleido with a warmer presence and a potential fit in elder care. Finally, the Goat. It's a four-legged and four-wheeled robot Kawasaki calls the RHP Bex. The Bex can carry up to 220-pound payloads and navigate uneven terrain. During the demonstration, the Bex carried cargo and even people. And the idea is to use it in everything from field work and agriculture to plant inspection. Now, if safety personnel and plants start riding around in robot goats, it's just going to make a more fun workplace.
Yeah, I think GOAT in this case stands for greatest of all time, but also goat.
Yes.
No, it's like the best goat robot I've ever seen, which is compared to no other goat robots. But I don't know. It like
You had an opportunity there to say not greatest of all time, but greatest of all transportation. Just saying.
that's true.
I'm just glad I made your list of goat robots.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that's extensive and
Number 1
incredible.
and number 100. It's every number. I don't know. The 220-pound payload like isn't very much. So you kind of wonder like how they'll need to price this thing in order to make it work. Because to me, like the lower the payload, like really you're getting into some more niche applications there probably. You can get up to 220 pretty fast. And my understanding is that even if like you're riding it, that's 220 is max.
Yeah.
So like you could ride it and then carry like a bag of Taco Bell or whatever, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I don't think I care. Like I want this thing based on its style alone. Like we covered robotics a lot, right? And we've covered other animal-like robots.
Yeah, the
like
robot dog.
The robot dog phenomenon.
Which is just like a rectangular box with legs.
Yeah, like Spot and Spot Mini, like those don't look like dogs.
No.
So I don't know, and they do not elicit any kind of dog feelings. They're actually like terrifying. They're like horror dogs. But
They're straight out of Stranger Things. That's what they
Yes, I
reminded
know.
me of.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And this goat like has these really cute like LED lights, and it's got like actual horns and an actual face. And I did see that Kawasaki wants to add humanoid arms to it.
Oh no.
So don't do that,
No.
please.
They already have humanoid robots.
I know.
Leave the goats alone.
Leave the goats alone, exactly. But I don't know. So I look forward to seeing it utilized. The uneven terrain thing is cool. I think that actually could be a valuable application. But it's, in terms of like it hauling stuff around or whatever, I'm not exactly sure. Like, you know, maybe like a garden center or something. Like little seed packets or something. I don't know.
It's not a lot of cargo. It makes you wonder if they could increase that payload to make it usable in other applications. Jeff, your thoughts on the robot goat and its potential?
Well, the 3 they rolled out, first of all, they still have to work on the humanoid robots because those 2 are still pretty creepy looking.
Yeah.
Especially the one they had pushing the wheelchair. That was not calming.
The ponytail. The fake ponytail is what gets me.
Oh,
yeah.
That was too much. But the ibex, and actually, have you ever seen an ibex, like the actual picture one?
Yeah.
They're awesome looking animals. Like, I thought it was a deer at first. Didn't realize
I gotta
technically
look
a
this
goat.
up. It's called
IBEX.
the goat one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looked like, when I first saw it, I thought it was a deer. But and I think as far as the payload goes, I totally get the concerns there. My first thought was more like search and rescue type situations, being able to haul supplies up to people, get into awkward areas, things like that, especially when you're looking in bad weather.
Yeah.
I think it could be an awesome fit. And it did look actually, I don't know, it didn't look clunky. It looked very smooth in the way it was moving and carrying that small person on its back and stuff. So it was very impressive overall. Also, I just want to say, this was sort of the anchor segment of engineering by design.
Yeah.
The other stories in there I thought were great too, and definitely worth checking out, especially the CRISPR one. I thought that was really interesting. So sort of diverging from what we're mainly talking about, but
how they can use gene editing technology to basically fight addiction. It's crazy.
Worth checking out.
Yeah.
The other thing that I kind of thought about in going through this, because we just had all these other stories. We have a couple more coming up here, still talking about automotive and chip shortage and all that kind of stuff. Robotics is another area that is definitely feeling the pinch of all of the lack of chips in the supply chain. And the biggest thing that I kind of wonder is when you look at further down the line, they can develop these things in 1s and 2s as sort of prototypes, but actually getting it into mass production is going to be a huge issue going forward because of the chip shortages. And I wonder which is going to play a bigger role in sort of allowing this technology to continue to grow and evolve and get into the mainstream, if it is going to be something like a supply chain issue around robotics and the chips, or just the fact that they cannot get these humanoid robots to look reassuring or calming in any way.
No, we saw the humanoid robots that Tesla is working on, and we're going to see more humanoid robots in industrial applications. It's just whether or not they're going to look like a nightmare train or be somewhat warm. I mean, the one that looked okay to me was actually Kaleido looked a little bit more approachable. Is what I was looking for than the one for elder care.
Sort of transformer-like.
Approachable.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's. I mean, right now it's cobots and other sort of very industrial-looking automation that we see in facilities. But we're going to see. It's inevitable that we will see more humanoid robots in these applications. And for some of them, like we used to have friends that worked on towers, and my cousins used to work on wind turbines. And it's, based on their experiences, while they were cool, it wasn't really a long-term play. Like, if they could be replaced by a humanoid robot, they would gladly do that.
And that is one of the applications for Kaleido, right?
Right, yeah. Like, these really extreme areas where you're putting a human in danger. Another one that would be really cool is if they made an underwater one for all the underwater maintenance and repair that has to be done.
Well, we ran a video where it was just one of those maintenance workers on a cell tower wearing like a helmet cam.
Yeah.
I think we ran that like 3 or 4 years ago. I got nauseous just watching that.
Oh, yeah.
I could not handle it. So you'd think, those guys would be more than happy to let a machine do the work.
For reader Jonathan Williams that reached out, no, the robot goats are not yet capable of clearing vines or eating invasive plant species, although if they could get it to do that, that'd be amazing too.
That would be incredible.
Like one of the most popular things my neighborhood has done in the last 5 years is bring goats in to eat invasive species. And it's just been...
Your neighborhood brought goats in?
Oh, yeah. Our neighborhood association brought in goats to clear out parks.
Yeah.
And so they just fence in the park, let the goats go, and then everyone just kind of... That's where all the families hang out, like eat lunch, take walks, watching the goats.
That's awesome.
I spend days, part of the reason I didn't go more insane during the pandemic was I had my goats. Just like, taking a goat break with the kids, I'll be gone. be gone for hours. Jeff, talking about the other segments, we are going to see more and more designs like this inspired by nature. One of the other segments in this episode of Engineering by Design was the Birdbot, which was a robot based off of ostrich legs, which are kind of descendant from Tyrannosaurus Rex legs. And I just think it's cool when we find inspiration in nature to do things more efficiently. We always try and over-engineer things, and maybe we should look in other places. No word on the cost of the goat yet. It seems like a pricey item.
Worth it.
And the other thing is, we do flying cars and other things that transform. At least going from goat to like an ATV was the most realistic of transformations.
It was not that dramatic, and it made sense.
Yeah.
Mechanically, the way it moved. Yeah,
it
totally.
just drops onto wheels. I'm like, that's so much better than like folding wings up and around and wrapping them in the back.
They needed some sort of sound effects though, like.
Oh yeah, and their music choice was just phenomenal. The Kaleido demonstration to Bon Jovi's, what was it? We're halfway there. Or I'm not gonna.
Living on a Prayer.
Living on a Prayer. Yes, thank you, Anna.
Wow.
Just up there fixing those.
What were you doing in the late 80s?
All right. Our next most popular story this week, worker injured in molten plastic accident. On September 23rd, 2021, a Berry Global employee was changing a screen on a plastic bag extruder when the worker was sprayed with hot liquid plastic and suffered severe burns. This week, OSHA hit the repeat offender with some $370,000 in penalties. During the investigation, OSHA found that the plastic packaging manufacturer could have prevented the injuries at its Sterling, Massachusetts plant had the company complied with lockout-tagout protocols and provided proper personal protective equipment. In the last 5 years, OSHA has inspected various Berry Global locations more than 40 times. And these inspections included fatalities in New Jersey and Wisconsin related to lockout-tagout violations. One of the things, when we run these safety stories, Anna, one of the things that I find most frustrating is when companies get put into what OSHA calls the severe violator program, and when there are repeat offenders. Because especially when there are tragedies like fatalities and people getting severely injured. I feel like that's a moment that the company could maybe really turn a corner when it comes to safety.
Yeah, and it's so often lockout tagout. Like, why is this so hard for people to get their head around? Because the consequences of not complying with proper lockout tagout procedures is severe injury, often death, electrocution, severe burns. I mean, there's just so much that can happen there. It's terrifying. People getting losing limbs because the machine starts while they're working on it. Like, it's just that the importance of that by itself cannot be stressed enough. And then I think when you look at this industry, which is melted plastic, you know, we think like plastics are everywhere, right? But I read a report on the projected growth of the plastic injection molding market recently.
Okay.
Because I'm super cool like that.
Yeah, some bedtime reading there.
just right before bed. But anyway, the report was talking about how much room for growth there actually is there because of obviously like plastic packaging, and in this case, that was actually what the application was that caused this accident. But also like automotive, because of all the components that are being replaced that were metal are being replaced with plastic because they're lighter and they help with fuel efficiency requirements to cut weight on the vehicle. And then also some of them stand up to corrosion a little bit better. So, you know, the report was talking about like how much actual like phenomenal growth we're going to see in like people just producing more plastic components. And, you know, when you're dealing with stuff like that, like melting plastic, not just the heat dangers, but there's like toxic fumes that come along with that. You know, people can get very sick very quickly if they're not wearing the right PPE. So to see that Berry Plastics, who is a plastics company, they know exactly what they're doing here, is not providing the proper PPE in this case. I mean, because it said that if this person had been wearing a face shield, a welding jacket, or leg protection, that this injury would not have been, you know, so
nearly as severe.
Right.
Yeah.
So why is he not decked out in protective gear? They know how plastic production should work. I mean, that they're a plastics company. So I don't know. It's very frustrating, to your point, that, you know, at what point does OSHA just say, that's enough? Because, you know, you would just wonder, like, this stuff should be basic for them, and why are they not doing it?
Right. Jeff, some of these extruders operate at 750 degrees Fahrenheit or 400 degrees C and above. That is just incredibly hot.
It is, and to echo a lot of what Anna was saying, this is a culture issue. That's why these things continue to happen. The lockout tagout stuff, that does come down to an individual performing correctly. That's a training concern there. For it to happen repeatedly, though, and for there to be a lack of PPE at this company, that is a company issue. That is a culture issue. We've seen much smaller companies have a much stronger focus on safety, and it pays off. This is an $11 billion company. They are 260 on the Fortune 500 list. This is a massive enterprise.
Wow.
They employ almost 50,000 people around the world. There is no excuse for them to, after 40 visits from OSHA in a year, for them to have these types of issues still arise.
Yeah.
An individual lost his life in one of their other incidents.
Yeah.
I mean, for these things to continue to happen at an enterprise of this size and scale, it's such a head shaker to me because the resources are there.
Right.
And we continue to see the onus that's placed on the value of workers, how difficult it is to attract and retain a quality workforce. And when these types of things are making headlines, as opposed to all the other positive things that you could be doing in an industry that Anna just described, it's got all of this room for growth and potential and positive things that are coming out that they could be talking about. To have this type of safety record sort of hanging as an anchor around their company's growth potential is really, it's hard to understand. Like, I don't know.
Is part of the issue that, you know, OSHA doesn't have enough teeth to really, you know, make any change happen? Because one of the worker who died in New Jersey was a 46-year-old person who died while adjusting a printing press in July 2017. And then October 2020, a 54-year-old worker died from a head injury at a plant in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Now, in Wisconsin, Berry is contesting the investigation and the about $41,000 in fines that OSHA proposed. In New Jersey, the company faced an initial penalty of $77,000, but settled it for $32,000. Now, Jeff, when you're talking about an $11 billion company and they settle down to a $32,000 fine, is that even worth their time?
Well, that's the problem here with the OSHA fines, right? First of all, they're not scalable based on company size, and they should be, for both the positive and the negative. For a bigger company like this, they should be higher. For smaller companies that make legitimate mistakes or don't have the same training resources, they should be smaller so they can learn without going out of business, essentially.
Right.
So there's the biggest issue. The other thing is you just mentioned that one fine was just cut in half because they couldn't negotiate it. So what's the bigger takeaway there when you're sitting down in the boardroom? Well, the bad news is we got fined 70 grand. The good news is David came through and got it knocked down to 30. So what are they going to talk about? The initial violation or the fact that it was knocked down by that much?
Yeah.
That's what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So those are the problems. It is not that OSHA doesn't have teeth. It's that they need to scale them.
Yeah. They need bigger teeth.
They need bigger teeth for bigger people.
Yeah. No, and I mean, and while it was, so this new penalty is substantial. It's $370,000 about in penalties, but I get so used to looking at the OSHA website to see what the initial penalty was, and then what it actually winds up being paid. So, and whenever I see that, I just hope that it's corrective action was taken, but sometimes with repeat offenders, that would be a bit too optimistic to believe that happened. All right, let's move on to our next most popular story. Our second most popular story this week: thieves hit Stellantis in a smash and grab. Stellantis factory storage lots in the Detroit area have been hit with a wave of thefts. More than a dozen vehicles have gone missing, including Challenger Hellcats, Ram pickups, and a Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. Thieves appear to be sneaking into privately owned storage lots and escaping with the vehicles by ramming them through the gates. One Ram even smashed into a semi-truck on its way out. Some of these vehicles are worth close to 6 figures each. These lots already have a heavy security presence, but will now have additional police patrols over the coming weeks. Anna Stellantis won't comment on the investigation, and I just can't believe, sometimes we talk about really smart, sophisticated crimes on this podcast, and it's good to see that the old smash and grab is still in business.
The old smash and grab. It's in business, and business is good because, sorry.
No, that was great.
Nope. No. Just pause for a second. No, it's insane how much this has happened to Stellantis in particular. If you look back on the last several years, they've had these same type of robberies multiple times, multiple lots. In 2018, there was a rash of these, and the police revealed at that time that they had a theory that this was an inside job. They said it is probably an employee because they seem to know where they're going, what they're looking for. But as far as I know, no one was ever arrested for that. So I don't know. Fast forward to now, I guess. And you think that these secure storage lots would maybe start to change their approach. But what I read in one article was that most of these lots, they keep the keys inside the vehicles because they move them so much. And I assume they don't stay very long on these storage lots. But I just want to say that I don't think that is working.
No.
Clearly, these thieves are willing to smash through a locked gate, and I don't think a security guard can really do much about that when you already have a tens of thousands of pounds vehicle with the keys in the ignition, and you're speeding out the door.
I'm sure he could go and shake a flashlight angrily at them.
I know. It's what might slow them down actually is putting the keys somewhere else is what I would do. And I know it might not be as efficient for those moving those vehicles around, but if you look at the cost, and you had mentioned most of these vehicles are worth 6 figures, you know? So 10 of them, 12 of them have been stolen so far this year. Let's go a couple years back and add that up. This is millions of dollars of product that has been stolen. I think maybe it's worth changing the strategy here.
Well, and Jeff, I mean, word is out that the keys are in these vehicles.
Word's out.
Well, it's not even that complicated. To be honest, you talk about it being a smash and grab, and it sort of is. But again, we're seeing sort of a convergence of factors here. Two things that we've talked a ton about here in the last 6 months or so is obviously all the issues with the automotive supply chain and cybersecurity on the uptick. There's people have more time to be doing nefarious things online. More things are becoming more connected. These vehicles are part of that mix, okay? So first of all, we've got vehicle prices going through the roof. So for whatever they're listed at, whatever they're going to sell them for, they're making better than they would have done a year ago or the last time that all of these thefts took place. The other thing is, basically, according to Auto Evolution, as well as some local news sites in and around Detroit, they're using a tablet and some software to break into these cars and start them. They don't even need the keys.
Oh, okay.
So they have figured out a way to hack into these cars and drive off. Now, driving them through a gate may hurt some of that resale value.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
not
the first
sure.
Only on the first one,
The
though.
first
Yeah.
one's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Take a bad one.
And these
Take
have been
the
going on
security
since
guard's
October.
car.
Yeah, and these things have been going on since October. So it does seem like a convergence. Again, these cyber criminals have had time to figure more stuff out because things were shut down for a while, and they're picking some pretty cool vehicles.
Yeah.
You see the Skyhawk? I was not, or excuse me, the
Trackhawk.
Trackhawk.
Yeah.
I was not familiar with that vehicle. That thing is amazing.
Yeah.
It's faster than the Hellcat.
Oh,
Really? It's a
700
Jeep, right?
horsepower.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. I get it.
It's a
I know why they went
fine-looking
after that one.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I thought about with this story is you hear 15 cars being stolen within the last year. You hear that, that's
Past month, right?
past month. That's about $1.5 million in value. And it does seem, that is jarring. But then you look at the drone footage of these lots, and there are hundreds of vehicles out there. And I was wondering, is this more of a headache right now than a serious problem? I get that that's a tremendous,
Cost of doing business.
well, not the cost of doing business, but, if they lose 15,
Well, I think it is a big deal, but I think maybe this bleeds into another issue, which is just hiring people to be there. I mean, who knows how many security guards they had walking around before? They're probably not going to disclose the fact that, we had about 100 guys before, and now we're down to maybe 50. That could be an issue as well with some of these lots and their security.
well, looking at the footage of the fence that was essentially driven through and we weren't looking at state-of-the-art security on these lots.
Yeah.
It was, so that's why I was wondering if maybe it's not that big of an issue to them, because otherwise they would ramp up security. I don't know. It just,
I think it has to be, though. It's not a good look.
Even if it's not just the number, you're right.
yeah.
10, 15 cars, not a big deal. The fact that it makes headlines like this, that's a big
Exactly.
deal.
It just doesn't look good, and I don't think it deters people when they continue to get away with it.
Well, it also gives me, faith in some of the bad television I sometimes watch. And I'm like, you can't just walk in and steal the car. What a lazy plot mechanism.
False.
And then this comes out and you're like, no, that's really all they do.
Oh, you just ram through the gate. It's just like a padlock on there. I think.
Yeah, they really just cut the padlock off and ram it through the gate. Okay.
Nicolas Cage was ahead of his time.
That's right. Hey, the original's better. All right. Our top story this week. Boeing 737 crashes with 132 aboard. A China Eastern Boeing 737-800 had 132 people on board when it crashed in a remote area of southern China on Monday. The crash set off a forest fire in the mountainous area that was visible from space. The cause is unknown, but at least one black box has been recovered. Flight 5735 was at 29,000 feet when it went into a dive, and about an hour into its flight. The plane plunged to 7,400 feet before regaining about 1,200 feet and then dived again. Confirming the cause of the plane crash can take years. It was a Boeing 737-800 that crashed, not the Boeing 737 MAX that was temporarily grounded after deadly crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia. The 737-800 is a twin-engine, single-aisle plane commonly used for short and medium-haul flights. The plane has been flying since 1998 and has an excellent safety record, according to officials. After this week's crash, China Eastern grounded all of its 737-800s. Jeff, they have been involved in 22 accidents since 1998, but they have flown in more than 116 million flights. Still, a deadly accident like this is just tragic.
Yeah, a horrible situation. And I think where it took place in such a sort of remote area of China, so you're looking at China as well, who doesn't have a reputation for releasing a lot of information when things like this happen happens within their borders. So it's going to be a while, I think, before we really know what happened here based on those two factors, which is frustrating for everyone involved.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, obviously, for those families who are looking for their loved ones. And it's also really not on the same level in any way, shape, or form as 123 people losing their lives. But man, it is it really hits Boeing too. I mean, when you think about the impact that this is going to have on them, first of all, because they're not going to know the results for so long, okay? And it gives people, kind of like us, a lot of time to talk about, here's another incident with Boeing. Looking historically, I mean, this is a company, 2 years ago, their stock was about $330 a share. It's almost half of that now. I mean, they've just been going through a hard time that way. And also, you know, when you look, the NTSB put out some numbers they've been putting out since 1982 in terms of aviation fatalities by make. Boeing has the most fatalities, or excuse me, second most of any vehicle, or any plane makers during that time. Almost 4 times as many as Airbus.
Who's in first?
Cessna. So a lot of those, obviously, smaller private pilots and things like that. There's a lot more of those incidents. But when you look at the number of fatality, almost 8,000, over 8,000 people have died in Boeing planes since 1982.
My goodness.
So those are horrible numbers. Obviously, you know, we just talked about a company with Barry that has a safety culture concern. We know how big Boeing is. We know the scale is not the same. But boy, when you look at that and you look at where they're ranking compared to their peers, there has to be some additional alarms going off, and it's unfortunate that maybe it took this long for it to happen. This is also a company, obviously, that has a ton of aerospace and military contracts that they're involved in. It's a huge, huge company, so passenger aircraft is not the only product that they've got to focus on, but it seems like whether it's from a maintenance perspective, initial quality controls, whatever it is, Boeing has some things they need to take care of. I was going to say damage control. I mean,
they've had... And there have been other scandals with Boeing. It seems like maybe they are a little too cozy with regulators, and maybe regulators like the FAA give them a little bit too much leeway when they're sort of regulating themselves. We also saw test pilots that were recently on trial as a result of faking and lying on reports from test flights. It's unfortunate that it's a Boeing 737 anything, a 737-800, because now you just think Boeing 737 and it's like, I don't want to fly on it.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure we're going to see the same kind of backlash as we saw with the MAX, and obviously there's some reasons for that. You described it earlier about just the frequency with which this plane is actually used.
Yeah, it has a good historical record.
Right, and it's described as like the workhorse plane of so many fleets, right? And there are more than 4,500 in service worldwide. It's the most common plane that's used for commercial airline travel. So while we wait to hear what's on that black box, which, as you said, could take years, the question, I guess, is, will it discourage travelers? And I think it's hard to say, but universally grounding the MAX was an easier choice for regulators because the MAX was kind of a new plane.
Right.
There were 2 back-to-back crashes, but not to mention that they could do that without tanking like the entire airline industry. And in this case, this is the most common plane. It is unclear what caused the crash. I mean, my guess is that regulators and travelers are going to kind of take a beat and just take a wait-and-see approach because I don't know, because we don't know. And honestly, like if they did ground all these planes, I know that Eastern China Airlines did ground them for maintenance and safety checks, but they are the only airliner that I'm aware of that has done so. And Boeing, I think, will appreciate the benefit of the doubt here as the investigation goes on, because obviously they can't afford to just go headfirst into another scandal, as Jeff mentioned. I mean, the last few months, I think, have been relatively quiet for them. You mentioned the engineer. I think, were you talking about the one that was acquitted?
Yeah.
So, he was acquitted of duping the FAA. He's accused of that, but he was found not guilty. And I think the subtext there is that it's because nobody told him that they had changed the software. So that, the problem was within Boeing, but you don't see that in the headline, right? So I don't think Boeing necessarily took another PR hit there when that case was finally ruled. But I don't know. So I'm curious with this data, Jeff, like the 8,000, do they account for like the market share? I mean, like if Boeing has, you know what I mean? Like as a percentage of flights flown, like
they didn't go into that and break it down. Boeing is by has the most planes in the air. Okay, it's bigger than Airbus by quite a bit. Even that's probably its biggest competitor. So there is a scalability factor there for sure.
Yeah.
It's just when these things repeatedly happen, to the point where you are such a prominent name in this industry, you would think there would even be more focus. And I don't think it's just even when it comes off the line. It's also making sure whoever's operating those planes knows how to maintain them properly. I think when we look at a lot of this and the damage that it has on Boeing, I'll be honest, when I'm getting on a plane, I don't look at what type of plane it is. Maybe I should, but I don't. I tell you who does, though. Investors, they definitely are aware of all this stuff going on with Boeing when they have other options. Military contractors are looking at this stuff and understand what they have going on, because if they're going to announce a big deal and they're doing it with somebody who's just had another plane crash, that isn't maybe the type of limelight they want to put that new contract or that new partnership in. The other person that's going to look at this a lot is obviously the airlines. They're going to understand, okay, if I go with Boeing, maybe it's the best plane right now. Maybe it's the best deal. But you know what? They've got 4 times as many fatalities as Airbus does. Maybe I want to go over here instead this time. I think that's where Boeing has to worry the most in terms of working with those types of customers, and just sort of the attention, the unwanted attention that they're getting right now.
So in 2019, the FAA did order inspections on 38 Boeing 737 planes, which included some of the 737-800s, because they were finding cracks in parts that connect the wings to the fuselage. But the investigation didn't wind up grounding any planes. But there has been, a history of potential red flags out there. And overall, this just sounds like a terrible situation. Not just the families waiting at the airport and the hundreds of people that are searching this remote countryside in the rain, trying to find anything that can be used to try and figure out a cause. I mean, searchers are using hand tools, metal detectors, drones, and dogs to try and find anything in this heavily forested area with steep slopes. And so far, they've only found wallets, identity and bank cards, and some human remains have been found as well. But it just sounds like this could be a very long process and maybe not working with a lot of evidence. Seems could be very frustrating. All right, before we move on to In Case You Missed It this week, we have another word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we're back with In Case You Missed It. The stories that maybe weren't as popular on the website this week, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll go first this week, guys, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good.
All right. The story I chose this week was about Lockheed Skunk Works that's going to host same-day hiring events.
What is Lockheed Skunk Works?
It's basically the part of the company that makes all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they make all the futuristic aircraft technology that will eventually be on planes, but it's a cool gig.
Yes.
So, like everyone else, Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division needs workers. The aerospace giant is now holding hiring events on Monday, March 28th in Valencia, California, and Tuesday, March 29th in Lancaster, California. They're going to conduct interviews and are looking to hire people on the spot for positions in engineering, production, manufacturing, maintenance, and other critical positions. Now, this is what I found the most interesting. The signing bonuses can reach up to $50,000.
Whoa.
That is incredible. I was playing in my old man card game that I like to talk about, where it's a bunch of people from the family, a lot of us in manufacturing in one way or another, and I brought this up. And it's just, everyone's like, man, we're trying to hire people with, flexible hours and
Yeah, right.
other fringe benefits, and I'm like, yeah, they're just going for the $50K. It's so, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, if you are qualified, get to Valencia.
Get to California, friends.
And it's, we've seen people giving away houses, we've seen people giving away cars, and I mean, the more we see stories like this, it's just getting really competitive for people with skill sets in engineering and manufacturing, and I don't see a sign of it slowing.
It can't. You know, you still continue to need people. I think it would be interesting here. I mean, with a company like Lockheed, that is a huge number. Obviously, I wonder what they were doing before though, because I think they were always sort of raising the bar in terms of because they want the best of the best. They want those MIT grads and stuff like that. So there was probably it's actually more impressive when you consider what it probably was before. It was exponentially more. Now, they've really amped up their game a bit.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it scales based on whatever the position is and you know, the qualifications. But I mean, I just imagine this room of people saying, "We need bodies. What's it going to take?" And it's just like, give them 50 G's. Like,
bring the suitcases of cash.
Right? You get 50K and access to futuristic aircraft to use at your leisure, whatever you need.
How big of a selling point would it be if they actually had a suitcase full of cash right there for you to sign up? Like pop it open.
Just to televise it, spin it around. You want it?
Sign the line. Sign on the dotted line.
Smell the money.
I like this.
No, it's and I just any opportunity to kind of talk about Skunk Works because it's always been
it's a breath of fresh air.
Thank you. It is. I like the smell of this one. No, it was like before there was Tesla and SpaceX. This was the cool company that people wanted to go work for, or at least the ones that I've talked to. Jeff, what is your actually before that? Would you guys like? Would you be enticed by a $50,000 signing bonus?
What? Yes, but I mean, like, was that a real question? Like, I mean, obviously it depends on the job, but yes, it would be nice.
Okay, but what if one was offering you 40 and one was offering you 50?
Which one would you choose?
But you like the one with the lower amount better or something. I don't know. Like, how much more would it take to get you to take a job you're on the fence about?
I would take the job that I wanted. You know what I mean? Because I mean, that's risky territory to just follow the money and see what happens. Maybe if I was 25, you know, but like, not now.
We've all had bad jobs and know how they can be a life suck.
Oh, just kill you inside.
Yeah, that signing bonus only goes so far in terms of quality of life. It's just, but you know what? We bought that Tesla.
Yep, I get Starbucks every day now.
Yeah, I cry inside, but it's okay because the bank's flush. All right, well, sorry for the ridiculous hypothetical. Of course, people would be attracted by $50,000.
Do you like money?
Yeah,
I don't know what Anna's reaction was more strongly about, like my bad joke about Skunk Works, or you asking if she would like 50 grand.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice to talk about because it's not something with people with English majors typically ever flirt with. Just like, what is this signing bonus?
Not
you
a
talk
problem
about?
that I've encountered.
I had to pay for my first few jobs. All right, Jeff, what is your in case you missed it this week?
I'm glad your negotiation skills have improved over time.
Yeah. No, I'll pay you guys. I need a byline.
So for my in case you missed it, I decided to go way off track and talk about something we don't discuss very much: supply chain issues.
Oh,
yeah. So a couple different stories here, and I thought they were both kind of interesting for the same type of reasons. The first one, if you remember, ZTE, they are a Chinese smartphone and networking company. Basically, they were banned by the Trump administration from working with any U.S. suppliers. So for what they needed our chips and processors and things like that. They were cut off. Their business was hurting horrifically. Well, that ban has expired. So now that does open up lines of commerce between ZTE, which is partly state-owned, which is part of the concerns. There's a lot of security issues there that the Trump administration was worried about. Well, that has expired. So now those companies that were working with ZTE in the U.S. are going to be able to start working with them again. ZTE is obviously the biggest beneficiary of this because their supply chain was very limited in terms of who they could source from. So it almost put them out of business. The other one was the U.S. has decided to lift tariffs on UK-based steel products. This was one that a lot of people were sort of not sure about when it went down because there wasn't a real clear connection between what the benefits were going to be here. I think the Trump administration was encouraged when a lot of those U.S. steel companies started, we're going to start building new plants and investing internally on U.S. steel. That didn't work out so great. So in both of these cases, I guess what it says to me is we're making adjustments to supply chain to try to help things get back to normal a little bit. We've been dealing with inflation on pretty much every level you could imagine. Hopefully some of these things opening up will help with that. In terms of the economic impact overall for the U.S., I don't think either one of these things is going to have a negative impact, obviously. With ZTE, there are security concerns, but it looks like those have been bypassed. What was interesting is for ZTE to not have the ban continue, they agreed to pay $1 billion in fines and restitution, replace its executives, and be scrutinized by a U.S. appointed monitors. So basically, they couldn't have done more to try to be more transparent, and hopefully that benefits all involved.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how these things can help, again, with some of the technology developments that we've been talking about, as well as just raw materials. Steel, we need steel. We don't make enough of it here. We're never going to. So easing up the tariffs there seems to make a lot of sense.
One of the big parts of this steel and aluminum tariff story is that the British also agreed to lift retaliatory tariffs on whiskey. On U.S. exported whiskey, yeah.
Thank goodness.
So I was reading the story, missed that part, and at the bottom it says, American whiskey producers welcomed the resolution to the trade standoff. I'm like, what does whiskey have to do with steel and aluminum?
Why?
They like their Jack Daniels in London, I guess.
Oh, man, that's right.
I'm sure they do.
Anna, your thoughts on these two stories and how they might impact the industry?
Yeah, I think Jeff's right. I mean, like, the more access we have to some of these supplies, the better for pricing. I mean, people are getting killed right now because there's nothing available. Obviously, contractors are dealing with these building materials issues big time. And that's just created kinks everywhere, from commercial construction to new home starts and all that stuff. So anytime we have more access to more affordable materials for that, I think is good. I think Jeff's right. And the ZTE thing, TBD. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know if those fears of security issues were overblown, if that was, politicking and it was just or if that was like legitimate, something we need to be concerned about. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of politics involved there, but at the end of the day, we got what we wanted, which was greater transparency from this company. That if they wanted, could have been a huge security concern.
Sure.
But the fact that they are allowing a U.S. board to basically go in there and have visibility into what they're doing, that should alleviate those concerns while still opening up commerce to some U.S. companies.
Anna, let's finish up in case you missed it with you. What was your in case you missed it story this week?
All right, this story is a little bit tangential to what we typically cover, but it has to do with a beverage company, Red Bull, which I know everyone's heard of, and their marketing strategy. So Red Bull has another extreme stunt on schedule for next month, and over the years this company has sponsored an array of really outrageous stunts in the name of marketing, including like a world record snowmobile jump of 412 feet and a race car ascending Pikes Peak at 87 miles per hour.
Yeah.
They did one where a guy was like on the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, a motorcycle, and like went to the I can't remember what the other building was, but like just this motorcycle leap that he said he got like $1 million for it, and he said it was not worth it. He would never do it again. Like he was fine, but it sounds like it was a terrifying experience.
I mean, they also did the skydive from space.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so they do a lot of this kind of crazy stuff, and it's live streamed and people watch with bated breath. But yeah, exactly.
All up, yes.
So this next one might be like one of the biggest and best, or maybe the worst. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. But on April 24th, Hulu is going to live stream the newest sponsored stunt, where two skydivers and pilots who are very accomplished happen to be cousins. I don't know.
Of course.
Why. Yeah. They are flying to an elevation of 14,000 feet in Red Bull branded planes, at which point they are planning to cut their engines, attempt to exit, switch planes, and then take control of each other's nosediving aircrafts. Whoa.
Dicey.
Who thinks this stuff up?
I don't know, but
Man.
People jacked up on Red Bull.
well, exactly. So, which brings me to my point, I guess, which is it's all very interesting and people eat it up and love to watch it, right? But like, what happens to Red Bull if their brand strategy like ever goes awry on this? Like, what happens if somebody dies? Like, what and it's very public. I don't know.
It's
like
live streamed.
Right. It's live streamed, and like their brand, like it's an energy drink. So people kind of, I mean, I've seen studies that say like drinking mass quantities of energy drinks like makes people prone to riskier behavior or violent behavior even. Take it with a grain of salt, right? But so they're almost tied to what they're doing in one sense, right? People equate Red Bull with this at this point.
Yeah.
Like, so if and when, if God willing, nothing, like happens, right? But like, what if something did? Is that something that they can recover from? Is that something that will impact them? A serious question. I don't know.
I mean, my thought is that it's something they could recover from because they've built this brand on extreme sports and knowing the danger. You can watch anything on the Red Bull channel, and anything from mountain biking down incredible slopes to these extreme stunts, and you know that they're all very dangerous and it could have a very severe consequence for people that, people get severely injured and like paralyzed all the time on these things. And so I think that based on how they've built up the brands, like around this danger, it's almost part of it. Whereas, I mean, but then again, thinking about the imagery of 2 Red Bull branded planes crashing into the earth,
it would be
on
horrifying.
live TV would be terrible.
It would be horrifying, yeah.
Yeah, I think there'd be 2 different reactions. I think from the more casual Red Bull advocate drinker, I think obviously they'd be mortified that this happened. Would it make them take a backseat in terms of thinking about if they use this or a different energy
switch
drink?
to Monster.
Maybe. But I think for like the real enthusiasts, the ones who are all about the extreme sports, quite honestly, if something bad happened, that might even bring them closer to this brand.
Yeah.
Because it just demonstrates the, I hate using this word, the extreme nature of what they're doing. I mean, their branding has been that good. It's been that successful in sort of tying everybody to that mentality.
No, completely agree. And this is also, I find it fascinating because they are pilots, but they're also skydivers.
Right.
And so part of that makes me feel better about it, that if something goes awry, they could bail and they're, maybe would know how to survive if something went bad. But I don't know. Anytime I see a new extreme stunt, it's just like, I don't think so, but I'm going to watch it.
I am not.
My fear of heights does not allow me to watch
You're
this
afraid of
stuff.
heights?
Oh, terrible.
Oh, man.
Hate it.
I love skydiving. It's, I mean, I wouldn't maybe do this, but,
just some real heavy sighs from production over there.
it's a big,
Our producers are not down.
I got thrown by the heavy sighs, so we either apologize for boring everybody out there or somebody's just getting tired.
Yikes.
Or maybe skydiving's not for everybody, It's all right.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Good for you, man.
No, it's good. It's been some years.
Actually, I think that I might be able to do that because you kind of just get pushed out of the plane.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
It's a one-way
it's
ticket.
more. It's not the. Whenever they show that stuff, it's not like when they're going down. It's more when they're just looking down and you're like, especially like I was talking before, the guy on the cell phone tower. That just.
Oh yeah. When you look out, when they open the door and you look out, you're just like, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
But then when you jump out, you go into shock and your body just paralyzes, so nothing really matters. No. But then the second time, when you know what you're doing,
Oh my God.
you just you look at the altimeter, and when it hits the orange, you pull the thing, and boom.
See, for me, this is how my brain works. If I were doing it, I would just be like, the whole time, I would not enjoy it. I would just be like, okay, when do I pull the cord? When do I pull the cord? When do I like the entire way down? And then I would just be like, I wouldn't even look at the trees or anything.
Yeah, no, it's the first time it is, you're literally, like, I was in shock. I feel like everyone is in shock the first time because you're just taking it all in. It's a completely new experience, and your brain is trying to process it and doing a poor job at it. And then, when you're doing a tandem jump, the guy's on your back and he's just like smacking your hand, like, look at your gauge. And I'm just like, why is he hitting me? This is amazing. And then he like keeps tapping your side where he's just like, this is the cord you're supposed to pull right here. And he just keeps smacking me. And I'm like, this is amazing. And he finally just pulls the cord and I'm like, oh, That's what he meant. That's what he meant. Just, and we came in pretty hot. Like,
Yeah, and then he gets back. He's like, you know what this idiot was doing? I kept hitting him like
Yeah.
a dozen times, and he wouldn't pull the cord.
oh, he told me. He was just like, he's like, yeah, I was smacking your wrist. I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. I completely lost. Like, this, like, the 2 hours of training we did, I completely lost on the way down. Sorry, bud.
So
Yeah,
you
actually-
were not selected to do this for Red Bull, I see.
No. I didn't meet the requirements of a Luke Akins and Andy Farrington. Man, that's gonna be awesome.
See, I actually almost went to airborne school, and I know most people in the Army say, yeah, I almost did it. I was going to do it. I actually was, but my enlistment came up, and I was not going to re-enlist. But if I would have, they would have sent me to airborne school.
Really?
And the big thing there is with the training that you get, and this is according to anybody who's gone through it, by the time you actually jump out of the plane, you've done so much practice and so much repetition. It's like walking, basically.
We did
I
not.
think it's a little scarier than that, but
We did not have that type of intensive training. Like, you walked in, went through like a simulated plane door made out of plywood. And they're like, all right, so you jump, and then when do you pull it? Orange, good, certified, get on the plane. So, but you know, maybe it's come around. We gotta do it again. We gotta make sure I get under that weight requirement, though. Don't want to pay that tax for that heavier chute. All right. Before we get out of here, let's move on to our final thoughts. Jeff, I'll start with you. Nope, because you're going to do trivia. And I'll start with you.
Okay.
What's your final thought this week?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I mentioned as well, I'm taking a road trip with my kids for the first time since pre-pandemic. And I'm super excited / extremely nervous about what my 3 children the toll it will take on me emotionally as they, I don't know, like 9 hours in the car, if we can handle it. I mean, I got a lot of fruit snacks. I think that I'm ready. We got a lot of like fun stuff to do in the car. Got some like little magnet puzzles and stuff. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have the like 1 or 2 days built in on the back end to like let yourself decompress?
Oh, for sure.
Or you're not jumping right back into work? the
I
next
don't
day?
do it any other way than that.
Okay.
Yep, that's the only way.
How far is it? Like, where are you going?
Branson.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, so it's like 8.5 hours from where we are, and we're going to do the trip out in 2 days, or maybe 3 to 4.
And that's
days.
why-
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's
you
why
may just
we're-
get there and turn around.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're a little early today. We got you're racing against another squall.
Another squall, everyone. Another squall warning is coming, and I have to get out of town before it hits.
Never once in our lifetime, and now 2 times in a month we're fighting squalls.
Both on podcast day.
Yeah.
know.
Man. Also, weather's not real. Just it's snowing. It's not a squall. Just like you're gonna see some snow, light flurries. All right. My final thought is just I don't have any plans this weekend, and the fact that you and then producer Eric are headed out of town just seems like a logistical nightmare. Because I struggle just to get the kids in a wagon to a park. So we're gonna call it a win if I can do that. Let alone like seeing whether or not they can survive many hours in a car, or any of us couldn't. So you know, for those of you not that ambitious,
Think of us.
take it easy.
Yeah.
Take it easy this weekend.
Well, and see, and you guys are in places where small kids, that's the logistical challenges involved there. So my one daughter was on spring break this week. The other 2 are next week. They don't want to do anything with me. So I get to do stuff that I haven't done in a while, like go pheasant hunting on Sunday.
Oh,
so
nice.
Nice.
I'm in the total like polar opposite spot of you guys.
The only other thing I wanted to add is that we did have somebody leave the IAN team today and wanted to just say goodbye and good luck to Mike Hockett. It was a pleasure working with you. Jeff, what do you got for us on trivia this week?
So trivia, we again only had one correct answer.
Really?
Congrats
Was
to
it
Mark
Marina?
again.
Oh, Mark.
The question last week, again, was when you're giving the Heimlich, there is 3 situations in which you would do a chest compression instead of the stomach or abdominal compression. Those 3 conditions are if the individual with a blocked airway is overweight, pregnant, or has an abdominal wound. Okay? So
Yeah.
in those 3 cases, go to the chest, not the stomach.
Wait, I thought it was if it's a kid too.
No.
Oh.
No, when I said baby, Jeff meant, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was talking about being pregnant, someone being pregnant.
Oh, gotcha.
There were other good answers. I'm assuming if somebody was unconscious, maybe that is the better route to go.
Sure.
Those were the 3 that I was going for based on my book of common skills from 2003.
Common
Oh, right.
skills.
Soldier skills from 2003. Following up, another trivia question from the IET common task booklet here. Basically, when you are treating somebody for a heat injury, heat stroke, just overheating, whatever the case may be, one of the steps is to loosen tight clothing. helps cool them down, helps improve circulation, all of those things.
Okay.
Now, whether it's a combat environment or really an industrial one, there is one situation where you would not want to loosen those clothes.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to keep everything buttoned up.
Okay.
What is that one situation? So someone definitely having trouble handling the heat. They could be just dehydrated. It could be more severe than that. Could be heat stroke or something like that. First thing, you want to loosen everything up, except in one situation.
So it's like just heat stroke or being hot, not like fire, right?
Right, not on fire, just
Okay.
having difficulty handling the heat and hot temperature.
Maybe not on fire, maybe like post on fire. I don't know. Anyway.
That would be a burn.
Yeah.
It's called
That'd be different. We wouldn't be worrying about clothes if they would just been on fire.
Well,
Jeff. It's called post on fire,
post
not
on fire.
burn. I don't know where'd you get that word.
they're in a post-fire situation. All right.
What a way to end it.
What was the question again? So, when don't you take off the clothes?
When don't you loosen tight clothing
Okay.
for a heat injury?
How loose? Are we talking like take it off?
No, just loosen.
Okay. Okay.
Man,
All right.
Are you like the lawyer of the crew here? You're just making sure everything is legally clear?
I got to wrap my head around it so that way when my answer's wrong, I know that I had all the information possible and still
You
got
are
it
not
wrong.
going to get one of those hats when they come in.
No.
We got a list, and you are
No,
not on it.
I have kept up my end of never getting a trivia question right. I've been going strong since, how long have we been doing this? 12 weeks now?
A little more than that.
Okay. No, the trivia.
Oh, just the trivia.
Yeah.
That's probably all right.
We're on episode 60. How long have we been doing this? No.
12 years.
About 60 weeks, David. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help the podcast out by leaving us a positive review, Anna. We only want positive
Only
reviews
positive reviews.
on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to contact us, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line.
If there is a negative review, just send it to David.
Just a direct DM.
Yeah, that would be fine, and I'll respond in kind. Finally, if you want to make sure that you get the podcast to your inbox first, you can subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. And if you do have any critical feedback, please send that to David at IEN.com. All right. For Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll see you next week.